Hello, hello, dear Dash community, to our introductory call on high performance masternodes. I'm very, very happy to be on this call and to share with you some of the research that's been going on in Dash Core Group. The call will actually go into two main sections, or maybe even three sections, depending on how you want to split it, depending on how you want to count things. First, we're going to have Paul on our research team that is going to talk a little bit about the decentralization of not only Dash, but of also other blockchain projects in the wild. Then we're going to go on to explain what our current system is, what high performance masternodes are, why it might be worthwhile to potentially envision changing to the system. And then we're going to talk a lot about numbers in a third step, where I'm going to lay out all the numbers, how much fees cost, what are recommended steps, what would be our potential read throughput, what could be our potential transactions per second. All of this information, it's going to be pretty heavy. And then I'm going to we're going to take it to questions. So without further ado, why don't we go to Paul DeLucia and the start presentation around decentralization.
Sure. Thanks, Sam. Hi, everybody. I'm Paul. I joined Dash just under 1 year ago, and if you were watching a few months ago, I presented the Dash platform fee system because I was working on that a lot at the time. Yeah, and now Sam has tasked me the past week to look into basically how decentralized the Dash node masternode system is, and kind of compare it to some of our competitor node systems. That way we can get a look at if we want to reduce the number of masternodes that we use for Dash platform, albeit they would be much more powerful masternodes. We can see, are we making ourselves too centralized or what? So let me share my screen. There's Sam. Okay. Let me just get my notes too.
For some reason, Paul,
Yeah.
you seem to be having some interesting development where people can only see my face.
Let me try sharing again. Maybe I did something wrong.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
There we go. Start.
Okay. I hope that works. Let me know if it's not. So we're going to look at four main points that are relevant to this topic. The validator count, the distribution among entities, meaning, does Sam own all of the does he own 20% of the masternodes at Dash? Or, how distributed it is the power. We're going to look at the distribution geographically, how many nodes are located in the US, in Germany, etc., and the distribution among hosting providers. So how many nodes are being hosted on AWS versus DigitalOcean, etc. So the validator counts, we have, here are the numbers. So Dash has, according to this chart, Dash looks really decentralized, and it is. We have the second most number of nodes out of all of these top blockchain projects, second only to Ethereum. So this looks great for decentralization, but on the other hand, it's also not so great in some ways, because that means if you want to store a kilobyte of data on Dash platform, you're storing it on 4,000 nodes, and that means 4,000 nodes need to process this information, and you also need to, so you need to pay 4,000 nodes to process this information, and you also need to pay 4,000 nodes to store it. So fees can be high. Now this is what the chart would look like if we lowered the number of nodes to 450. You can see Dash is right in the middle here between Avalanche and Polkadot. I would consider this kind of like a sweet spot, because we have a really solid amount of decentralization, and we have a number that is good, so we're not paying too much storage fees and processing fees. Now we'll look at the distribution among entities. So here we're looking at the distribution of Ethereum nodes. After the merge that took place, I think it was 2 weeks ago, people, and leading up to it as well, people were saying, pointing out that Lido Finance and Coinbase own around 45% of the nodes. And as expected, the first 1,000 blocks that were produced on Ethereum, 420 of them came from two addresses, one from Lido Finance and one from Coinbase. So while they have 8,000 nodes, almost half of them are controlled by just two entities. Here's the same distribution for Cardano. Cardano, have to say, they're pretty decentralized, so kudos to them. Single pools, the blue is just people that own one pool. Then they're basically the biggest entity is Binance, holding about 12% of nodes, and goes down from there. This 35.1% is just really much smaller node holders. The amount of staked Cardano is kind of what gets validators chosen. So it's not the number of nodes, but the amount staked that we're looking at here. In Solana, the top 30 validators control 33% of the staked SOL, which is not a terrible number, but the problem is that the top entities, and actually all of the nodes, are largely held by insiders, meaning team members, venture capitalists, investors. Less than 2% of the SOL tokens were put for public sale. The rest were given to insiders, meaning the team, and investors, early investors. So when the Solana network has gone down a couple times in the past few years, they're able to quickly, just a few, within a day, get everybody to restart the network, which is, I guess, a little concerning. And of course, we just saw this last night. Well, last night for me, I guess it was yesterday for most people, with BNB. Of course, the situation is a lot worse for them because they only have 25 nodes. I think it's about 25. And I think, it it's kind of well known that one or two people have control over
Shh.
a few of them.
No, people know. We don't need to say it out loud.
Okay, okay. Sorry.
No worries.
Um, so here's a nice graphic from Mazzari showing uh, basically how tokens were allocated on all of these platforms. The blue is public sale, the pink is insiders, um, and then gray is foundations and more, and green is community allocations. Yeah, again, you can see Solana, less than 2% went to the public. Um, Cardano looks good. Cardano, kudos to them again, pretty decentralized. I remember that I think it was 95% of their public sale went to Japan because um, they only sold to a few countries at the time because that was when a lot of countries were cracking down on ICOs. So they could really only safely sell to some countries, and it's a statistic that about 95% of those tokens went to Japan. Um, can't really find data on what the distribution is now geographically, um, but that is a fact. Okay, yeah, let's move on. So now is this Dash? Yes. Okay, now we're looking at Dash. Um, so I looked, me and Sam and Virgil from the research team looked at MNOwatch.org. Shout out to XKCD for maintaining that website. There's a ton of great information on our masternodes, on all of our proposal, the voting outcomes of the proposal, and just data on the blockchain. He has gone through the blockchain and basically grouped whales into these classifications that we've identified. We've identified Binance, and then I believe it was XKCD that made these names up for just other entities in the networks like Johnny, Blue Whale. But this is essentially the distribution of node power in our network. So Binance is the top. I don't know if it's 100% certain, but it's very close to certain that they're the biggest entity with 6.4%. Then second is Johnny with 5.5, and going down. This gray area at the bottom, other, is, you can just imagine, smaller and smaller slices. And then on the left, this missing part of the donut is basically unclassified nodes. And the reason they're unclassified is mainly, I'm guessing this, but I'm guessing it's mainly because they're just either single node owners, so they're single node owners, or somebody that hasn't been active on the network like at all.
It's
Yeah.
it's nodes that MNO watch was not able to group together. We can estimate though, and in our calculations, we kind of estimated that they would represent a similar, close to a similar diversity of the network as the right side.
So would you say you could just mirror the right side?
Close, but we also don't believe that there are any very, very big whales. It's probably pretty clumpy, but probably with less very big whales.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, I mean, really distributed compared to the other networks that we looked at. But wait, before I move on, there's something. Okay, whatever. I'll think of it later. Okay, the next thing we're going to look at is geographic distribution. This is slide 12 of 14, so just 2 more slides after this, by the way. Geographic distribution is important because a lot of things can happen. For example, one of the latest things that's a hot topic right now is sanctions. The U.S. placed sanctions on Tornado Cash, and basically, a lot of nodes on Ethereum have chosen to censor transactions from Tornado Cash because they don't want to get in trouble themselves, and services that are U.S. based that Ethereum nodes use are censoring Tornado Cash transactions. So actually, 24% of blocks in Ethereum 2 have been OFAC compliant because they use Flashbots, which is a service that is censoring Tornado Cash transactions. That's 24% of all blocks. And there's other things that can happen too, like you can have an earthquake that can damage nodes, for example, or a lot worse things that I won't start getting into. So yes, geographic distribution.
Please no World War III. Please no World War III. Please no World War III.
Yeah, I know. We need to get some nodes on the moon. Help us, Elon. Ethereum has 49% of their nodes in the US, 19% in Germany so those two entities make up 68% total. As you can see, we're just looking at US and Germany because in each of these 4 networks, the US and Germany hold the most nodes. 15% in the US for Dash and 31% in Germany for 46% total. Cardano has 32% in the US and 24% in Germany for 56% total. And Solana has 20% in the US and 21% in Germany for 41% total. Okay, hosting distribution, meaning are your nodes hosted on AWS, DigitalOcean, Vultr, etc.? I guess this is important because AWS could decide to censor Tornado Cash transactions as well. It's the same situation. Maybe Jeff Bezos is going to run for dictator or something, and he wants
Hey.
wants to censor, whatever. So
no politics.
Ethereum, we have 31% of their nodes are hosted on AWS, 8% on Google Cloud for 39% total. I'll also mention that they have 30% of their nodes are hosted on, like, people just have the hardware at their house and stuff. So that's really great. I commend Ethereum for that. And you know, using hosting providers is great too because they replicate your data and stuff, so they have positives too. But um, yeah, uh, Dash has 21% on DigitalOcean and 20% on Hetzner. Cardano has 20% on WS and 13% on DigitalOcean, and Solana has 42% on Hetzner and 26% on OVH. And here's just a graphic kind of illustrating the geographic distribution for Dash on the left and the hosting provider services on the right. It's these are not as big a deal as the entities controlling nodes because if all of the nodes in the US went down, we would still, it's not like a 33% not attack, but what is it? Threshold for threshold. What's the word? Consensus.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'll cover that right afterwards to some
Yeah.
extent.
Well, it's just a way to visualize the geographic and hosting service providers for Dash. Yeah, that's it. I forgot. I had one more thing to say, but I forgot what it is. Maybe I'll bring it up later if it comes
At the
back.
end of my presentation, I can pass it back to you if you remember.
All right. Yeah, so that's it for me. And Sam, would you like to take it up from here?
Sure. By the way, guys, we are going to take questions at the end. So if you have any questions, probably you should write it down in the chat, and then so you don't forget. Yep. Stop sharing, and I will start sharing.
Okay.
Thank you. Give me 1 second. Excellent. Okay, so this is an introduction to the high performance masternode concept. As I continue talking about this, what I hope people will realize is that what we're trying to do the most is trying to find a balance between performance, security, and fees. And there is no right answer, I believe. It really is depending what we want to do as a network. And that is why we're making this presentation. It's up to you guys to go vote when we post proposals on this next month. And I'll get to that. So a little history. To start off and explain our original design and how we kind of where we came from. So we started Platform way back, right? Maybe 2015, 2016, but at that point it was just ideas in Evan and Handy's head. Eventually, when things came and became a little bit more material, it was decided somewhat before 2018, we're just going to have all masternodes run Platform. But there wasn't, in my opinion, much thought to it either. It was just a simple solution. Then when we decided to go with Tender Mint first for consensus, we had to make the decision that the validator set would be selected from an active quorum. So that was 2018. Then we basically came to a big question, 2018, 2019. How do we get nodes to actually run Platform? Like, what incentivization do we do? And we started really with a stick, and that was proof of service. So the original idea was we will basically, if you're not running Platform, you will not get a reward or you will get banned, like a proof of service ban. that was actually a great idea. And maybe one day we will do it. As time has unfolded, and as we have had delays after delays, we decided that there has to be some things that we cut for our first version. And proof of service was one of them, because proof of service was actually very complicated. It used game theory to basically have all nodes checking on all nodes, and game theory to figure out which nodes are actually providing service for the network, which nodes are not. That would have been very hard. I believe at least 6 months extra of work, and we need to release. Like, we cannot wait to have the perfect system. We sometimes need to choose the most bang for the buck. So with that, we decided in 2022 to instead use a carrot. And the carrot would be that 50% of the Masternode reward would be allocated to platform. So instead of being punished for not running platform, you just wouldn't get money if you didn't. So it's not really as much of a punishment, but you get rewarded monetarily if you do. And I guess if you don't, well, you get less rewards. Still a better system than the previous one, but not super great. So let's talk a little bit about the original design choices. So in the original design, everybody's running platform. Because of this, the security around decentralization is very, very high. It would cost about $47 million at the current Dash price to do a double sign. Now, when you think about what a double sign is, for people trying to figure this out, a double sign is an attack that would basically stop platform. And it wouldn't allow extra blocks to happen afterwards. It would just really stop it for one block. We can kind of understand this stops platform. You can double this amount in value to know the amount that it would cost to take control of platform. Now, at the same time, as you're buying tons and tons of Dash, the price is going up and up, and you own that Dash. So it's probably not so much in the interest of somebody spending $100 million, or actually more like $1 billion if they wanted that amount, to then lose all their money by breaking the system. So another strength was that there were a lot of nodes to service queries. You could query 4,000, basically every master node. So it's a very, very high read throughput. And we're going to actually go a little bit later through many of these aspects and give actual numbers. It's also more decentralized. There are more nodes. Now, what are the weaknesses? Because we have to, all the data needs to be stored on 4,000 nodes. We need to, well, pay for that data. We have a lot of blockchain projects, in my opinion, don't think about storage that much. So when you're not thinking about storage, eventually your blockchain is going to bloat, and you're going to get less and less decentralization because fewer and fewer nodes see value in running the service. So what in Dash platform, the main idea is that when you pay for storage, you don't pay directly. You actually pay over a 50-year period. So like that, whenever any node comes in, and let's say the node comes in and the storage requirements of platform are, let's say, 300 gigabytes. On their first epoch, they're getting the value. They basically are using 300 gigabytes of their storage, and they're getting back from platform twice that amount in value, if not more. Well, there are some limitations of the system based off of the price of Dash fluctuating, but if the price of Dash were to stay stable, then they would be getting back twice as much in fee rewards. If the price of Dash were to fluctuate, they would either be getting more or less. There is a system for changing the allocation based off of the price of Dash, the thing is that this is not an exact science because it requires a masternode vote and a contract to do. And sometimes the price of Dash is going to fluctuate more than the network is able to respond. So you sometimes might have, instead of 2 times, you might have 4 times, you might have 1 time. It's going to be a little bit variable. I'm going to take, it should average out around 2 times though. So another weakness, and this is maybe a weakness, maybe a strength, but all masternodes must run platform. If you don't want to run platform, well, too bad for you. Bye-bye. So I actually think that some people just would not want to do it and would just sell off their Dash. Not many, but some people just are very risk averse. And probably just wouldn't want that. They might have got into to Dash thinking that they'd never host non-payment data, and they don't want to do it. And I actually really am a real proponent of choice. I really think that allowing people to choose is always the better solution. So also a weakness. So if all masternodes run platform, that means that all masternodes must increase their specs. Yes, and if they don't, well, this could be bad. Mostly because, well, you need specs for platform. And it will just cost more to the network if we have everybody running platform. So then we can really wonder, well, can we do better? And this is something that's been on my mind for quite some time. You have to think that lower fees are very attractive, and we also kind of want to have higher transactions per second. Showing a higher transactions per second will bring more projects to Dash, showing the ability to decentralize, to do decentralized queries, something no other blockchain really has. Lower fees, high transactions per second. This can really start a migration. So we have to take that into account. Oh, oops. Well, this didn't come out. The slide had a little issue, but the Dash values, I'm gonna give everybody like 10 seconds. If you can think of them before I start presenting the slide, you win. Dun, 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 dun. Probably I'm not allowed the Jeopardy theme song. Okay, let's imagine those are 10 seconds. So here are some values that I came up with. Not really I came up with, that I think exist, but that I kind of remember working in Dash for so long. We've really focused on ease of use. You know, you take out your wallet, you easily pay for something, you know, putting the user of Dash really first. A lot of projects I feel have much less ease of use in blockchain. We've also always focused on adoptability, basically the low costs. When you use Dash, you don't want to pay $1 fee for something that on Web 2.0 would be free or very low cost. Now, transfer of money, our fees are extremely low. And we also want to keep those low fees in platform, while at the same time making platform into a business, generating revenue for the masternode owners. If we subsidize it always, subsidize fees, we're going in a really wrong direction. Probably at the very beginning, the price would spike, right? But in long-term vision, we need to create some type of sustainable model that attracts users and at the same time gives money back to servers running the system. Another Dash value, I believe, is the freedom of choice. We've touched about that quite a lot. Our governance model really has a lot of parts in this. You vote for what you believe in. Dash synonymous with speed. We want our system to be very, very fast. Performance. I think we have one of the highest performing networks out there, and we've seen that pretty often. Meritocracy. Meritocracy really, actually, this became a thing watching Amanda B. Johnston video maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago. She made a video on how Dash is a meritocracy, and it really stuck with me. It is true. Not everybody has the same voice, but everybody has the same voice based on how much value they have put into the project. Maybe not value, it's money. And decentralization. We strongly believe in decentralization. So when we think about all these values, we also have to realize that it's very hard to strike the right balance between all of these, especially it takes a lot of thought over years. So maybe the first model that we chose that was chosen pretty quickly might not have been the best one. So what is this new model that I'm going to present today? It is the high performance masternode model. So what is a high performance masternode? So it has a higher collateral. In the vote that we're going to do next month, there are going to be 3 systems to choose from. There's going to be a 1000 Dash, everybody runs platform. There's going to be a 4000 collateral. So basically the high performance are on 4000 nodes. Or there's going to be a 10,000 Dash per high performance masternode, and each path for us has pros and cons. And I want to say it here: I will respect any decision that the network chooses. I understand the pros and cons of every single one. And so it's going to be a very interesting month next month. So for the high performance masternode, the only nodes that run the high collateral are rewarded for running platform. So basically, there's a split. 50% of rewards go to the normal masternodes. 50% go to the high performance masternodes, and only the high performance masternodes get fees from platform. It actually sounds, just from me saying it, that the high performance masternodes are getting tons more fees, but that's actually not true, because there's an equilibrium that will form. If a high performance masternode is getting more fees, what we'll see is through services, either through CrowdNode or just people having the amount necessary, 4,000 or 10,000, they will run high performance masternodes because they'll want those fees. If there are too many high performance masternodes, they will get less fees than normal masternodes, classical masternodes. And what we'll see is some will just stop running high performance masternodes and they will go back to running normal masternodes. Some notes here. A high performance masternode receives the same rewards for core as a normal masternode, but gets a lot more on the platform side. So validators on platform are selected among high performance masternodes. That was pretty obvious from what I said before. And I also said, yeah, I already said this, it's a market-based system. So owners upgrade at will, and then there's going to be an equilibrium that's reached. And I created this little thing on the right side to kind of illustrate this using DALL-E artificial intelligence generator that I'm a little bit addicted to recently. So let's evaluate the proposed change now. So we have strengths and weaknesses. So the strength, we're going to get lower fees. And I'm going to go much more in depth into these topics right afterwards. We have more transactions per second. We're going to have an opt-in scenario for masternode owners. There's a market-based system for fees. when we think about the market-based system for fees, we also can understand that, let's imagine that there is a request for censorship in Dash platform. Dash platform is holding data afterwards. And let's imagine that some Masternode owners or high performance Masternode owners no longer want to run platform because they live in a country where it is scary for them to do so. And everybody has their right to do what they want. In this high performance scenario, what would happen is they would just switch back to running normal masternodes. If everybody was running platform, they would have no option but to sell their masternodes or no longer get rewards, which is not super great. So let's imagine they just switch back. Well, now there's more rewards on the platform side. So maybe somebody will come in, market-based system, right? And will start seeing a higher reward on one side. So they'll decide, yeah, let me go and get higher rewards by going and running platform. One other strength is that it is slightly easier from a technical perspective to run one beefier high performance masternode than many standard masternodes. Like every time I have to update nodes, oops, it's annoying. I think some bigger masternode owners would agree. Not saying I'm a big masternode, but slightly. Yeah, and one other strength is it's slightly easier for some nodes to catch up on consensus. I forgot what I meant there. Probably that, oh yeah, I remember. So when you have a very large network of the extremities of your network get information slower. So when you have a smaller network, it's more centralized, but you get information distributed faster. Yeah, another good part is that in this situation, let's imagine that there was this bad problem and platform basically broke all the nodes it was running on. Really, really bad, right? It's terrible even. Our payment chain would continue working. The apps, DashPay, would continue working. Instant sends would continue to be locked. Chain locks would continue to happen. It would not affect the payment network. And that's because there's a small percentage of nodes running platform compared to running the full masternode system. And because that percentage is less than the threshold required of 25% to stop an instant send lock, well, then there's no issue really. Also, another strength of this change is that the changes are core dependent, so there's no to a minimal delay incurred. I'm going to go on to that a little bit later. So now we can go on to the weaknesses. One of the weaknesses is that it's hard to know how many nodes will upgrade. We can't. I mean, it's a market-based system, but it's not in the control of the system to know. It's market-based. We can theorize that it will reach equilibrium, but we can't know it. So we can't know exactly the values that the market are going to decide. It decreases decentralization, and that is the biggest problem. And we are going to cover that pretty heavily right afterwards. And because it decreases decentralization, there's lower security. So I think we said it was 46 million on the 1K side, on the everybody running platform side, and this one is 32 million. So I think a 50% lower security. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong there. I'm just going to make sure, because I haven't heard anything and I've been talking for 30 minutes, that am I still talking? Balash, can I have a sanity check? Or Paul?
You're good.
Okay, good. let's continue then. So one thing that we have to know before anything else is that we have instance end. And how does instance end work? Well, there are 32 quorums as of V18 that are used in instance end. Each instance end quorum has a size of 60 members. So to have an ideal amount of nodes in the system to run the instance end lock transactions, we need 1,920 nodes. More nodes is good. Less nodes is not great. It's not that bad. So like if we had only 1,000 nodes in the system, it would still be okay. But the optimal number is 1,920 plus. And we always don't want to, like, in my opinion, get too close to that number. Like we want to have a little bit of a margin above it in an ideal system. Now, just to be clear, 100% clear, instance ends will still work as long as there are 60 nodes in the network. So you can have much less than 1,920. It's just this is the best one for the for fast instance end. Okay, so now let's go on to platform security. Now this is going to be much more fun or much more interesting for maybe some people. All these calculations are based on a reward split of 50-50 between payment chain and platform chain of Masternode rewards. What we have to think about here is that these parameters could change. And I did play quite around, well, we all did, making them 30%, 40%, 50%. In terms of security, 50-50 really nailed it. And sometimes we got a little bit better security with 45%, 55%, but just to keep things simple, 50-50. So all nodes run platform, that's pretty simple. There are 4,000 nodes. In the high performance 4K system, that means the collateral is 4,000. We estimate that there would be 450 platform masternodes. And with a 10K collateral, we estimate that there would be 180. So then we can go to like, how many nodes would there be in the system total because collateral is coming out of normal nodes and going into high performance nodes. So we would have 2,650 total nodes in a 4,000 dash system and 2,380 nodes in a high performance 10K system. This is, just to point out, this is higher than the necessary amount for instance end. There's also a caveat here. We can't know for sure. Maybe some people won't want to run a node, but hopefully the market incentives will push them to do what's in their best interest. Now, we also ran some numbers on what was the chance for the top whale in our system to be able to stop the chain in all scenarios. And strangely enough, the high performance 10K was the best one here because it was impossible. So and the reason why this is you can imagine like a Gaussian curve, and there's some like little probabilities on the side of the curve for all nodes running platform and high performance 4K, but there's basically it's cut off completely for high performance 10K. That was very nerdy. Sorry about that, guys. So what we can see is that pretty much for all of these values, the chance of the top whale stopping the chain is 0. And when I say top whale plus 20%, this is imagining the top whale, which is Binance that we saw, then had 20% more dash, and what would be their probability? So, you know, it's very, very, very small numbers. If Binance had 40% more dash, what would it mean? Well, there's 3.4 10 to the power of -4 chance. So like 3.4 in 10,000 maybe chance. So it's per quorum. So it's very small. There are quite a lot of quorums per year, but it's still very, very, very small. Okay, now the more scary part to some, and this is the negative part of the high performance system. I've listed a lot of strengths, and now we're going to see the biggest weakness. And so looking at our top whales, what would how many top whales are needed to stop the chain? And if all nodes are running platform, you need the 13 top whales to stop the chain. What does it mean to stop the chain? It basically means that the chain would halt. Nobody would be getting rewards anymore, and it would require a manual intervention to restart it. The data cannot be changed in any way at this point. It can only be stopped. So it would probably be quite bad in the sense that it's horrible when a chain stops, but it also does not seem like there'd be any benefit to any node, any top whales doing this. Especially that, let's not go into why they would, why they wouldn't. I'll just present the numbers and people can make conclusions by themselves. So as we can see here, there was actually very little difference between the high performance 4K and the high performance 10K in how many top whales would be needed to stop the chain. They were very, very similar. It's just in the distribution of our network. There were some exchanges in the top list. So, we can think that the exchange has a lesser chance of stopping. We also need to realize that they would need to stop. All of these whales would need to stop at exactly the same time. So it would have to be a colluded effort to stop the chain. It's not just, okay, I'm stopping, and then somebody else is stopping, and then somebody else is stopping. No, they really need to collude. One thing that we can think of is that a lot of other chains are less decentralized than this, meaning that there's really only one whale needed or two whales needed to stop the chain. So this is pretty much the negative of the high performance system. Also, one other thing to say is that if we noticed that this was happening, well, it doesn't. I mean, this is a large debate on how the network could react. So let's imagine whales stop the chain. That's only really ever going to happen once, right? I'm pretty sure very quickly a governance proposal would be made on the payment chain to deal with it, to figure out what we do. And, that probably would not be a two-time event. Okay, so now let's talk about fees and why the high performance system is really great for our end users. There's a caveat here, is that the fee system is not completely done. I calculated these values based off of theory at the moment. And there's also another point. For example, all nodes run platform to register on the system for identity, DPNS, and DashPay. Basically what you need to use DashPay on your mobile wallet is 58 cents right now. It was actually $1 or $2 about 4 months ago. And we've done some crazy optimizations in platform to reduce this number. that were actually not even needed for the optimization part, but to actually get the fee system working. Sometimes when you make improvements, things just fall into place, and we needed things to fall into place. But as you can see, things are more expensive. So we would get a lot more. I mean, it's very appealing, I would say, to get people using a system when it's very cheap compared to more expensive. Okay. So now let's talk about the read throughput. Now this is another part where all nodes running platform, it is better. Because you have 4,000 nodes you can query, even let's imagine that the query load is 50 per second. These are very rough estimations. They're actually based off calculations I did off of a node at one point, but things have changed tremendously in the system since then. So I needed some values so I can guess that they're going to be around here. We will know the exact we could know the exact numbers, but to do that, we'd actually have to build out the system. And it's probably better to have a more rough estimate than have a delay at this point. So what we can see is the higher performance the node, the higher the query speed, the higher the query load. So you can basically get a lot more queries done per second, and the network can actually has less total query load because, well, it has less nodes. So we have less queryability of the system, but 54,000 queries per second is still pretty high, especially for an initial release. So I'm not, my conclusion here is that I don't think it matters all that much. We're probably never going to hit 54,000 per second queries in the first year or first 2 years, and we'll be able to improve that system as time goes on. So another very interesting metric that is not yet calculated, these are estimates for very minimal transactions. So transactions that are not very complex, how many transactions per second would we really have depending on each system? So if we have all nodes running on platform, we'd probably have around 200, my guesstimate. With the 4K system, it would probably be double. And with the 10K system, it would probably be around 1,000. Now, it could be in 2 months that I'm proven completely wrong and it's times 10, or in the worst case scenario, much less than this. But this is where I currently think things are headed. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about recommended specs. And it's been asked a lot in our community, why would a high performance Masternode run on stronger hardware? What's the incentivization? So to get paid, you need to work. And in our case, it's actually proposing blocks. And if you don't propose blocks, you don't get paid in the platform system. And you can't propose a block if you don't know what to propose and what the current chain state is. And going backwards, you can't know what the current chain state is if your hardware is not good enough for the network and you start lagging. This is actually also a little bit of game theory. The network is making money off of fees. So if the network is at capacity, and some nodes start upgrading, the nodes that haven't upgraded are going to start lagging behind. They're not going to make money anymore. So it's in their interest to be stronger, to be able to support the network. This is theory. It hasn't been tested, but it is pretty probable that this is the way things would work. So in the end, yeah, it's basically just all a market. Yeah, don't need to go too much. So maybe some people are interested in platform recommended specs. So one problem is if all nodes are running platform, a lot of nodes currently are running on 2 gigabytes of RAM or 4 gigabytes of RAM. To run platform, you really need about 8 gigabytes of RAM. Maybe you can get by with 4 gigabytes, but then again, you might start lagging behind. It really depends on the platform usage. On storage, you have we estimate you'll need 200 gigabytes within a year. Again, completely estimate. We have no idea how much platform will be used. Currently, the core chain requires about 75 gigabytes when you have all the indexes needed, if I'm not mistaken. So, we estimate another 125 gigabytes for platform. CPU, probably 2 cores is enough if all nodes are running platform, 4 cores or 8 cores in a high performance, for high performance. Network throughput, 1 gigabyte, 5 gigabytes per second, 10 gigabytes per second. This is pretty, I must admit, this is a little bit spitballing. We haven't run the numbers on network throughput, but a lot of nodes in our current system are on 1 gigabytes per second. I do not believe that you would actually need more until you have a much higher transactions per second requirement. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the impact to roadmap, because that is probably very interesting to a lot of people. Work to have high performance masternodes would be done in the core team. There are 2 main changes. A new type of masternode with a higher collateral is created, and only that type of masternode is valid for the 100-member platform forum. To me, these are very simple changes. I don't really see any possibility of a delay because of this, especially that the core team is now in very, very good shape. We have multiple teams working on platform, and core team has almost completed the majority of work necessary. So basically, we're not waiting on core team. Okay, so now we have to basically make up our minds. So it's a very important decision that this network needs to take. We believe, DCG believes that the network really needs to make this decision. So we're going to make proposals on the next cycle to figure out basically what we want to do. And this is kind of a sum up of some information that I presented earlier. So if you're running platform, it's forced in one situation, 450 nodes, high performance, 4K, and 180 in the 10K. The decentralization is the best in all nodes running platform. It's good. We saw with the numbers in 4K and 10K. The fees, considerably higher at 58 cents. This is for registration, but you can extrapolate on percentages somewhat. 58% for all node running platforms, 6 cents for the high performance 4K system, and 2 cents for the high performance 10K system. The read load for the network, you'll have the highest read load in all nodes running platform, but you still have very high in the high performance 4K and almost very high in the 10K. And with that, I'm going to open it up to questions. I bet there will be quite a lot. I have not looked at YouTube since I started talking about half an hour ago, I think. That was a long monologue. So I'm gonna stop. Well, actually, how am I gonna do this?
Hey, Sam, I noted a couple questions from the chat. if you want me to repeat them.
Oh yeah, sure. Let's go.
The first one was, why don't we just do sharding to reduce fees?
That is an amazing question. Give me a second. Am I still presenting or not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, people are going to see my face now. Somebody called it beautiful before, so here I am again. So why don't we just do sharding to reduce fees? Well, if you want platform to be delayed by 2 years, yes, that's great. We can do sharding. Look at Ethereum 2.0. They don't have sharding yet either. Sharding is a very, very complex system that is not being discounted for doing in the future. But when you have sharding, you have to realize that each shard is quite centralized. So you're not completely saving yourself from centralization because you can stop any shard with a higher centralization. The throughput, though, of transactions per second would be much, much better. So, but the reads would be lower. So the real reason why we haven't evaluated sharding is because we have a team size that just is not able to do it in a reasonable amount of time. And we really need to release something to market. And I hope that answers the question as best. I hope that answers some people's question.
Great. Yeah. What enforces? How do we enforce the high performance requirements?
Oh, I did put a slide on that, so I'm guessing that somebody asked that more earlier. I'll repeat it. It's really about if the network starts lagging behind, if nodes start lagging behind, they just won't propose blocks. This isn't like the payment chain where masternodes just get paid if they're not proof of service banned. They actually need to do work to get paid at the time that they at their proposal of the block. So since they have to do work, if they don't do that work, it's just going to switch after a small delay to the next proposer, and that proposer gets left in the dark and doesn't get their money for that block. There are a lot of blocks. So if somebody is missing one block, it's really not a big deal. Our block time is around 7 seconds, I believe, 5 to 7 seconds. So in platform. So missing out on block is not a big deal, but missing, on all your blocks, you just don't get paid. So you're going to be like, oh, I didn't get any money. I'm not using the recommended specs for the network. Okay, better upgrade.
Great. Is introducing high performance masternodes going to push back the release of platform?
I guess these questions were a little bit early on. No, it won't. It's 2 very small changes, and that's kind of what the beauty of the system is. It seems quite complicated because of all this information that was presented. I personally believe, other people might not believe it, but I personally believe that the hardest part of all this is actually this presentation and explaining things to our community, doing the vote. Because making a masternode change from 1,000 to 4,000 and a new type of masternode is already baked into the masternode system. There is a field for types. So adding a new type is not hard. Requiring that type to be 4,000 collateral instead of 1,000 collateral is, to me, it seems trivial. And then when we select quorum, select members for the 100-member quorum, we only use type 1 instead of the type 0. So it's pretty trivial, but it is high impact. Any more questions? Paul?
Those were just the 3 that I noted.
Yeah,
There were some others like Do we know who will use the platform? Do anyone out there waiting for platform? That was one question.
Do we know who will use the platform? I'm going to imagine that that's a question about our target audience.
I believe so.
So in release, our target audience are people making payments with Dash Pay. That is our first goal because I believe that at release, the day of release, there will not be many dApps in our ecosystem. They'll come, but they won't be there at the very beginning. So we're going to be targeting a lot of users. As I also said, we're also going to be targeting companies and developers that have built things on other chains and trying to get them to switch to Dash instead. Why switch to Dash? You have the decentralization of the queries. You have, hopefully we'll have extremely low fees compared to other solutions. And, a lot of, those two things together, for companies that see, well, on one system, it's going to cost me millions of dollars in fees, and on the other, it's going to cost me $100. They might choose the cheaper fee system. I think that there would be a much higher attraction if we make sure our fees are reasonable, very reasonable.
Next question is, on the platform security, top ways to stop. This is assuming that they put all their masternodes into high performance masternodes. Question mark.
No. Since we assume that there's about the same amount, no, it's not. There's an amount of nodes that are able to do the 4K, and there's an amount of nodes that are able to do the 10K. The amount of nodes able to do the 10K, the estimation, I believe, is around 250 nodes are able to do that. The equilibrium sets in at around 180. So I do believe that we would find equilibrium. With a 4K system, it's much more sure that we would find equilibrium because, well, they're just more, there's less of a barrier to entry, right? More people, more individual owners have 4,000 Dash than have 10,000 Dash. So with a 4,000 system, we get almost the same benefits. But not as good. But I think like registering on platform, it's 6 cents versus 2 cents, 4K versus 10K, right? So 6 cents, I feel like for people in the US, for people in Europe, and a lot of places in the world, that's very acceptable. 2 cents is really acceptable everywhere in the world, I would imagine. And yeah, because if you're making like, I'm not going to say like really low amounts, but if you're making like $50 a month, not a month, $50 a day, or $30 a day, or $20 a day, it all is proportional to your income, right? Into the value of your currency and various economic factors.
Yeah. When will be the proposal?
Proposal will start in the next cycle, not this cycle. So what's going to happen is I'm going to do an AMA with Joel, where I answer anybody's questions if there still are any. I believe that is next week. And then at the start of the next cycle, we will make this this proposal. The way exactly how we make the proposal is yet to be determined. Most likely, we will just make 3 proposals, and it will be the one with the highest yes votes that wins. But yeah, we haven't yet really thought about that completely.
All right. Why do you need the higher collateral to ensure high performance? If you just want to limit the node count, can't you do that without increased collateral?
It's interesting. So if you don't have the higher collateral, you're not going to bake in as much rewards into the system. You won't get like you're getting back more rewards for 4K, and because you're expected to run higher higher performing nodes. So while it's possible to do with 1K, you would have to, you would have to basically only send a small amount of rewards to platform, right? Let's say like 20% to platform, 80% outside of platform, or something like that. And then the problem really becomes is that because of the added complexity of, I mean, I must admit that I don't want to say stupid things, so probably I'll have to think on that one and answer at the AMA. I do feel like asking people to run much stronger hardware when they're not potentially getting higher rewards would be weird. So I'd have to run the numbers to see if that's actually viable. My thought is it isn't. I did play around with 2000, and it was less viable. It just made less sense. But I'll have to spend time looking and actually get numbers to be able to answer that.
Thank you. Locutus was not mentioned on the list of competitors. It should be considered, even though it's not strictly blockchain project itself. Has this been looked at as a comparison?
I don't know that project. I'm sorry. I told Paul research blockchain projects that might be interesting in but I just said do a few, right? This call has gone on for 1 hour and 20. I'm sure that there are a lot of very interesting projects. If there is one that we really need to look into, we can, but the real thing is, what would it really change? Like, we would know that it's more or less decentralized, but I'm not sure that it really brings much benefit to us.
Thank you. Was IPFS considered when designing a Dash platform solution? If so, why it was? If so, why it was rejected? How does that affect the storage decentralization picture if it was used?
That's actually a very interesting question. Is that one from you, Andy? Who wrote that one? Do we have a name on that one?
Great Wolf.
Okay, so yes, IPFS was actually the first system proposed for platform, but IPFS is not really meant for consensus. It's meant for data exchange, but you can also have data exchange through TenderDash. You don't need IPFS for data exchange. IPFS is very good for like bigger files. It's not what's necessary in our consensus engine. I hope that answers. If it doesn't, if you want more information, I could ask Yvonne on the platform team to write an answer for you in Discord, because it was our original platform system was based on IPFS, and it just didn't cut it.
All right, thanks. If Dash goes to 400, 4,000, 40,000 in the future, how will this decentralization picture change for Dash platform?
Well, I don't actually think that the value of one Dash impacts it. Well, it shouldn't in theory, but in practice, it probably will, as people might cash out. No, because if it goes up, there's an equilibrium and more people are buying. It probably would lead to less people having the ability to have 10K nodes, maybe. So that is a consideration.
Yeah, there is a follow-up question, I guess, to this from Great Wolf as well. Will it be more difficult to host a high-performance masternode, especially if the collateral is even higher than the regular masternode? Oh, that's not fully related to the first, but yeah, let you finish it first. Higher than the regular masternode. Would it be more difficult to host a high-performance masternode, especially if the collateral is even higher than the regular masternode?
Well, I mean, it depends what the question of more difficult really means. So if you're talking about more difficult in terms of getting the Dash, well, yes, you have to use more money. If you're talking more difficult in terms of setting up the system, well, no, setting up platform in any three ways is going to be exactly the same. If you're talking about the difficulty in setting up, let's say let's say somebody currently has 5 nodes, right? And one would be platform, one would not be platform. In one scenario, when you have 5 nodes that you have to set up for platform, obviously this is going to make more work to set up 5 nodes than it would be to set up 2 nodes. So it's really, I didn't really understand, but I hope that answers your question.
All right. Sharding. Sharding is already mentioned by others. How feasible it is to switch to sharding later, and given how Dash platform is currently designed?
Okay, so basically we have a state, and our state holds all the data. There are 2 types of sharding. There's processing sharding and there's storage sharding. I am going to guess that it means sharding of both, as that is probably the more common system of sharding. So you would shard not only your processing, but you would also shard your state. Yes, it is possible in the future to go to sharding. However, I would not hold my breath for it. To go to sharding, we would need a lot of time and energy, and we have quite a lot of stuff that we need to do in the roadmap, namely smart contracts. I mean, there's just a lot of really cool, easier stuff, bringing on more users, stuff that we can do. I believe for our end user, it doesn't really matter if we can do 10,000 transactions per second or 1,000 transactions per second at launch, because I mean, when we get to 1,000 transactions per second, it will be a great problem to have that now we have to do sharding, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
And there is obviously going to be a limit to vertical, basically making our nodes stronger and stronger. at some point we will have to scale horizontally with having with sharding, but it's just, in my opinion, not what we shouldn't plan for it now. We should build a system that is very attractive to users from day one, and when the usage is too high, well, we'll have, that means that probably most likely the Dash price will have skyrocketed, meaning more developers will be hired in DCG, potentially other organizations for development will exist on our network. And well, yeah, let's go to sharding, but we need the capacity to do that.
All right, thank you. I'm still not sure why an entity would run high-performance masternode given the cost to reward ratio. Can they do better on their return by doing something else? I'm not sure the incentives make sense. Dash doesn't exist in isolation in the crypto ecosystem.
I think that there might have been a misunderstanding then. So there's an amount of money, like a pot of gold on one side to running high performance masternodes. If nobody is going for that pot of gold, well, people will go to the pot of gold, right? Because it will be very, very good for them to go and get money because they have like really high rewards. Wouldn't anybody do that? In fact, you see that when new projects come out sometimes. You see this like large spike at ICOs. I mean, back in 2018, 2019, where there's very little, but there's just like a gold rush into things. And that's probably what would happen. And the market would eventually stabilize. Why would so I really just don't understand the question. If you could elaborate a little bit more, I'd be happy to answer better.
All right. How exactly will voting work? Do their votes simply count 10x?
Oh yes, exactly. So their votes are based off of how strong the masternode is. So if it's a 10K masternode, yes, any vote they did in the voting governance system would be 10x. Any one they did in the 4K system would be 4x.
All right. Question from one time. What would be the downside of allocating a smaller percentage of block reward to platform? Why is 50-50% is best?
Excellent. That's a very, very good question. Thank you, one time. It's basically because the more you allocate to platform, the higher chance that one entity could stop the chain or not take control, but stop the chain. For example, if Binance put all of its nodes in high performance, but you're allocating less to platform, there's a higher chance that one entity can just stop it. We never want that. So at the moment, the chance is 0 if we do 50-50. If we were to do, or when I say 50, it's not, when I say 0, it's not 0. It's like 0, 10 to the power of -6, 1, 10 to the power of -6, right? Very, very low. But when you allocate less and Binance puts all their nodes in platform, well, then they can have 1/3 of all platform nodes. And that would be really bad. So we have to come to a number where the amount of nodes on platform make it so there's no ability for a single actor to ever potentially stop the chain, be able to stop the chain. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense.
Thank you. So how does this change to high master nodes affect the voting system for project proposals every month? I guess, high performance masternodes. So how does this change to high performance masternodes affect the voting system for project proposals every month?
Well, it shouldn't really affect voting all that much. Like if you have 10 nodes that you're voting with, and now you're voting with one node, but your vote counts times 10, it's the same, really.
Would it be possible or desirable to hard limit the number of high performance master nodes to something like 200 nodes?
Again, there are benefits and downsides. So if you're going for the 4K system, what you'll notice, what will happen is if you limit to 400 to 200 nodes, and the top whales all go into the system, you don't have the level of decentralization required to be safe based off of our network. So you can limit to 200 in the I mean, according to what I showed earlier, a limit of 200 would be no problem in the 10K system, but market forces would not get there anyways.
All right. Question from on time. Would the barrier to entry of a higher collateral amount, such as a 10K dash, make it less likely for the amount of high-performance master nodes to swing up and down as much?
Would it make it less likely? Well, I don't. Well, I haven't thought about this, I must admit. When there are less nodes controlling the or there are less actors, if you will, controlling the high performance masternodes. So since there are less actors, if a few actors decide to take their offline, there would be a higher swing in percentage compared to all nodes running platform. I hope that answers the question as well.
Yeah, he added, the question is in regards to the churn between the two masternode types.
I didn't understand. I guess I will have to wait for the AMA next week.
Right now, the masternode payments happen in a queue. How would that work with high performance masternodes in the mix?
Okay, that's a great question. High performance masternodes are still receiving core rewards. They just get, like, for example, if they're the 4K one, they would get 1/4 of their rewards from core and 3/4 of their rewards from platform. The 10K ones would get 1K from core and 9K from platform, because they still are providing services for core, just at the same level as a normal masternode. So they get the same rewards. For their core rewards, nothing changes. For the platform rewards, everything changes. Platform rewards are a completely different system on how people get rewards. Everybody gets rewards at the end of an epoch at the same time, and an epoch lasts 18 days. And if people are wondering why 18 days, I'm sure that some people are wondering that, you have to balance out the number of epochs versus the cost of storing for each epoch. And 18 days seemed like a good middle way. We also thought about doing 9 days, but it was costing a lot more in processing to the system. So we have to understand that an epoch every 18 days, so that's 50 epochs, I believe, no, that's not 50 epochs. It's 25 epochs per year, and 50 epochs. Yes, it's 50 epochs per for the duration of all time. So you're basically paying for 1,000 epochs. So at the end of every block, all storage rewards gets divided in 1,000. If we were to do 9 days instead, we'd have to put those into 2,000 buckets instead of 1,000 buckets. And at some point, you double, it just becomes too much. I'm sure we could handle 2,000 if we did the high performance node mass node system. But we originally went with basically 1,000 buckets.
What storage speed should be on 10K high performance masternodes, assuming a 10 gigabit traffic?
Well, SSDs. We recommend SSDs. I can't give the exact hardware requirements because I don't know them. Basically, we are finishing platform. We're going to be running a lot of tests once we are feature complete. At that point, we'll know the exact recommended values. Right now, they're very much guesstimates, but they're pretty, I mean, it won't change that much from the guesstimate.
I'm catching up with the comments.
Mm-hmm.
If a node is lagging and cannot propose a block, but it's trying to, would it still be slowing the platform down? How does HPMN owner know if HPMN is performing well enough?
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, you'd be able to easily query if you can just ask platform, hey, is my node doing well? There's a query. You can ask any node how much rewards they're getting. I'm sure we can make a little web interface for that. And if you notice your node in the list, it's probably better that we query all nodes and we just put it on a website. If you notice your node is not doing well, yeah, you should make your node a little bit stronger. Not getting rewards for like a day or two is not really going to hurt anybody, right? Well, sorry, there might be people that with master nodes where not getting 1/5 of a reward is very painful for them. But for most, I would imagine that as with any new system, there's going to be a little bit of trial and error. Some people might make out a little bit better. Some people might make out a little bit worse when they find that right middle ground.
Those epoch rewards also come from the Coinbase, right?
So the epoch, there are 3 components that are going into the reward system. There are there are actually 4, but for all intents and purposes, we'll talk only about 3, and I'll just quickly mention what the 4th one is. So there are processing fees, there's storage fees, there's the Coinbase reward, and there is the base reward, and there is permanent storage fees. The permanent storage fees are very, very small. And because they're so small, we are not even going to probably touch them for the first version. And they're meant to reward a few types of nodes that basically not only store the whole state, but also store all state transitions that ever existed, that they're basically backup nodes. We, very small parentheses, we are probably also going to look to do some backup node system with maybe about 10 backup nodes to the system. This is literally just in the worst case scenario. Anybody can run a backup node as well. Right now, probably for release, since the cost of running a backup node will be very low, For the first a few months, we probably will do backup nodes. Probably DCG will run a few. Members in the community will probably run a few. They'll be very, they'll be very low cost. They won't have much more cost than running platform. You're just storing, a few extra tens of gigabytes on the backup node. As time goes on, and then a few years later, you want those backup nodes to be rewarded for the service the service that they're providing the network in case something goes wrong. So, but that will not be for our first version. And I got sidetracked. I forget the original question. What was the original question?
Those epoch rewards also come from Coinbase, right?
Oh, yeah. So some of it is from Coinbase. And at the very beginning, as fees are still very low, quite a lot will be coming from the Coinbase.
Thank you. Is there any risk of having fewer than 100 high-performance masternodes at times? What happens then?
So the minimum amount of high-performance nodes for the system to start is 90 at the moment. And this is a problem with the 10K system. You will have a harder time to get to 90, though, just because of the way fees are aggregating in platform. When platform switch happens, when platform doesn't actually start right away. What actually starts is a bucket where rewards are starting to go to platform. And the first nodes to propose blocks for platform are going to really do well. So basically, it's going to be kind of like, okay, there's going to be more and more value put into platform. And then the first nodes that are able to touch on that value, not the first nodes, the first 100 nodes that are able to touch on that value will be very happy for basically in the first epoch, first day. First day, not first epoch.
My question is, how does this affect the rewards for simple master nodes? Do they get less or the same amount given a chunk of them is now high performance master nodes?
Cool. That's
all
a very
as
good
being
question.
equal.
That's a very good question. Actually, they are making, you know what, I'm going to present some data that I was using, since we might as well. Let me just get that for people. See if I can find it. Give me a second. So I want to start by thanking Ryan Gull from Incubator. He was the one that made this. I do believe that he had help from previous work done by XKCD and One Time. So, but anyways, this is actually, oh God, 1 second. So in the Masternode 4000 system, if we were to have 450 nodes, the super node gross yield would be 4.8%, and then the normal masternode gross yield would be 4.7% if we are currently at 4.6%. Now, it's all a market system, right? So if we have less super nodes, the super node gross yield will go up. If we have more super nodes, the super node's gross yield would go down. Or I might be confused. It's getting late, a little bit late for me. The one thing that we do have to remember is that with platform generating fees, the fees will probably push super nodes to the fee, the balance will actually help normal nodes in some way. It's complicated. I have to think about that a little bit more. But I do believe that for normal masternodes, yes, maybe their rewards would go from like 4.6 sorry, 7.6 to 7.4, maybe. They could actually make out better if supernodes is the word that Ryan used. The official word is high performance masternode. It could be that high performance masternodes are willing to, run more just because it's easier for them. There's less hardware requirement. So maybe that would actually push masternode rewards higher. It's hard to know at this point.
Does DCG have a preference or recommendation out of the three choice?
I do. The thing is that DCG is a very heterogeneous network. We all have our own ideas. I do believe there are some people that prefer each of the three solutions, and I wouldn't want to assume that DCG is one entity where we all believe one thing. I will say from my side, though, that I really want platform to be used very, very heavily. And I do think that means we need lower fees. And with all the benefits that we have with a high performance system, I do think that one of those two is probably better. I'd be very happy with either the 4K or the 10K. The original system that was proposed was the 10K. A few people inside of DCG later thought, oh, let's have a mid solution. It was also talked about in the MNO channel to have a midway point solution where fees are not crazy low, but they're still pretty low. And I do think that like fees of 6 cents to register for platform are fine compared to 2 cents. Like I do believe most users wouldn't be taken aback by 6 cents. We also have to realize that it's not only the registration that costs money. Every single time that you make a contact request, you have to pay for it. And in one system, if it costs 20 cents to make a contact request, you might not want to do it, right? You might think twice about it. But if it costs a penny, I don't think anybody will even think about it, right? Who cares? I mean, obviously, most of us watching this call probably don't care about 20 cents to make a contact request. But if you're only making $1 an hour and you're somewhere in the world and you want to use platform, it's 20 minutes of your time to make that contact request. So, if we want to, like if you're going out and you're like buying, you want to like add a merchant, right? And the merchant, and you're going to buy a hot dog or veggie dog or anything small, the veggie dog is going to cost $1, but it's a new merchant and you want to pay through Dash Pay and you're going to add them as a contact. Are you really going to pay 20 cents to add them as a contact? Probably not. So these are all the considerations that went into deciding to propose this change. I also don't want to. I also want to stress how much I like the fact that if there is a catastrophic failure on platform and all platform nodes go down, our masternode system is fine in the 4K and 10K system. And that is one reason why I really like it, because well, our payment chain is sacred, and platform is a little scary. It's a new system. New systems, when they come out on general, might have an issue. We're working really, really hard to make sure it doesn't, but you can never be too sure. And it would be quite safe for the network if there were so many nodes that were just not running platform.
All right. We have a last question.
Yeah, we need to end in 9 minutes. It's 11:51 for me.
Would it ever make sense for high-performance masternodes to have time-locked collateral longer than one epoch? Could that help reduce swings in number of high-performance masternodes?
Yes. So in many projects, there's something called an unbonding period, and I'm guessing that that is what is being talked about right now, where basically, if you want to withdraw from platform, you have to unbond your collateral. I mean, not platform, from other projects. That is a very good idea. The thing is that we need to right now balance a few things. And one of those things is I don't want to announce any more delays, and I want to get something out as soon as possible. So we really need to make minimal changes, and bonding periods is a massive change. So it does make sense. A bonding period would also have to go to a vote. The unbonding period would probably be about a day. So you'd have to request, I mean, it's changeable, right? Like we'd have to do research on it. There hasn't been much research done. We could make our quorums much faster. So the unbonding period would be very quick. But yeah, I mean, it really does make sense to have an unbonding period. And when we think about the high performance system, well, you would be getting, again, it's a market system. So if you don't like the unbonding period idea and you want to be able to take out your money whenever you want without waiting a few hours, well, you don't have to run high performance nodes. So that's another benefit. But for the first version, we are not doing unbonding periods just because a consideration for time and release.
Will high-performance masternodes stake collateral never ever be slashed?
Whew. Okay, that's another good question. So we have no slashing, and we have no, at this point, idea to do slashing. To say that it never is going to happen, I don't know. I can't make that promise, but I can make the promise that DCG will never introduce software to do slashing automatically without making it go to a masternode vote first. Well, as long as I'm CTO, at least.
What constitutes a contact request? Take dash name, for example. What would be a contact request when using dash names?
Oh, that's a completely other topic. Oh, so contact requests are actually not between names. They're actually between identities. And identities have names based off of DPNS. Dash pay name, DPNS. I guess that stands for Dash Pay Naming Service. I forget. Dash Platform Name Service.
Platform.
It's really late. So you make the contact request between identities, and then you resolve the names at the same time. What is a contact request? Well, that actually is explained in DIP 15. I won't go into it much in detail. I'll give a quick 15-second synopsis. Basically, the way DashPay works is you exchange an encrypted key, and with Diffie-Hellman key exchange, you basically create a key derivation path that then you can pay address. You can get an address space between users. So when you're using DashPay, at the moment, and this is just for the first version, the contacts are public. The payments are not. So if I make a DashPay friend request to you, Balazs, that will be known for the first version of DashPay, but whenever I pay you, nobody will be able to know, unless they do, maybe advanced chain analysis. But theoretically, nobody would be able to know any more than they currently know on our current chain.
All right, that was the last question.
Whew. That was only 2 hours. I hope people really enjoyed it. It was a lot of information given, and I will be doing an AMA on the topic next week, and I hope people will join for that AMA on the Dash Cash network, on the digital cash network. I forget exactly what Joel's network is called. He'll kill me later.